everybody, and welcome to Cooking with the Keefe's Fall Edition. Now that the weather is getting a little bit cooler and the leaves are starting to change, and I think the summer is officially coming to an end, we wanted to do something a little bit more festive and fall-like, so here we are today. We're actually going to flip-flop things a little bit. I'm going to be starting with our baking segment, and then we'll lead into Patrick's cooking segment. I am going to be making an apple fritter cake, or in this, we're going to make mini cakes. And I think Patrick is making...
I'm going to do a butternut squash ravioli with a little bit of a brown sage butter and some toasted bacon with some pumpkin seeds and a little bit of a kale salad.
Nice.
So nice. I think it'll complement your dessert, which I am excited for.
Awesome. So I've already started prepping, and this is a really easy, really quick recipe. So we're gonna get going. We don't even need a mixer or anything to make this recipe. And I have not made one recipe from this magazine that hasn't come out absolutely fabulous. And the reason I am making it out of this out of the magazine is because in this magazine they give you the volume measurements, but they also give you the weights. And I wanted to start showing you guys a different way to measure your ingredients. It's definitely a better way to bake. You're going to get more consistent results by weighing your ingredients. You also make a little bit less mess, less dishes, which who can complain about that? So
even when I make it.
Even when he makes it, he makes lots and lots of dishes. I have my little scale here, and you can get one of these on Amazon really inexpensively. And I'm just going to weigh out my flour. And so anyone that's seen me bake in the past, you know that I fluff up the flour, scoop it into the thing, sweep it off so I make sure I don't get too much flour. This, you just weigh it, and you're gonna get the same results no matter how packed down it is. When we post the recipe, I'm gonna post it with the volume ingredients so that everyone knows what those are, the volume measurements, I should say. But for right now, we're gonna do 219 grams of flour, which is 1 3/4 cup flour. And I just keep a scoop right in my flour bin. And let's see, almost there.
And these food scales are pretty, the good thing that Jen and I do is we try to do things that are easy to make at home, but, relatively easy to find the ingredients too.
Yep.
And these food scales, as we know, the world is so small, you can get things on Amazon or just the local stores. They're very inexpensive, they're very durable, and they're just, as Jen mentioned, they're super easy to use.
Yep, super. And then for the next ingredient, we're gonna do baking powder, which is 1½ teaspoons. And because that doesn't weigh a lot, I do tend to use my teaspoon or my tablespoon. But if you were gonna weigh it out, it's about 7½ grams.
So what's the difference between baking powder and baking soda?
So baking powder is baking soda mixed with something like cornstarch, or, in it, they raise, I always get these mixed up. One activates when it hits heat, and one activates when it hits moisture. So sometimes when you have a recipe that has both of those ingredients, it's because you're getting double acting, double raise.
Double act.
Double acting. So it has, I'm sorry, it's got, what is that ingredient that I'm not thinking of? The little white, oh my gosh. Baking powder is baking soda and cornstarch. I was right.
We're gonna edit that out.
I always second guess myself.
Confidence. I
know, I'm trying. All right, next is cinnamon. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon.
And I noticed that I learned early on that sometimes when you think you're using something that's gonna leaven a product, and then it doesn't poof up like a biscuit or something,
Yep.
like what happened, it's because usually baking soda acts and releases really quickly. Baking powder, you can mix, reserve, and in the oven later on, it's going to give you that activation that you need.
And there's a lot of other ingredients that you bake with that you don't even realize give you a rise, which I'll go into when we mix up our wet ingredients.
Give you a rise. Ha ha ha.
Oh boy. 3/4 teaspoon salt. And we're going to mix that up with our whisk really quickly. Get those incorporated. You're gonna notice if you start baking or if you do a lot of baking, you're gonna see that you mix your dry before your wet, and then you mix your wet, and then you bring them together. And the reason for that is to make sure that you evenly incorporate all of your ingredients without over mixing and changing the texture of your baked goods. Because if you over mix, there's a lot of times that you're going to get a more dense, chewy cake as opposed to something light and fluffy. Next, we're gonna add in a portion of our apples. For the whole recipe, you're going to need about 2 cups of apples or 232 grams. We're gonna start out by adding 174 grams of apples and reserving the rest to top up our cake. And the reason we're tossing these in with our flour is so that they don't sink to the bottom of the cake. You're gonna coat it. And so adding the apples, you're gonna coat these with the flour.
And do you have to use Granny Smith? And I love Granny Smith, but...
I know. So no, you can really use any apples that you really like. I think this actual recipe called for Honeycrisp. You could use Cortland, Macintosh. You always want to cook with a firmer apple. I like the Granny Smith because they're a little bit more tart, and it balances out some of that extra sweet that you get. So. Definitely
my favorite apple to eat raw. I think Cortland's are great to bake with, and then of course, you know, she mentioned Honeycrisp, a little bit firmer. They're gonna not be mealy. I don't love Macs. They get a little soft.
Yeah, agreed.
But they're still a great apple.
Yep.
But cooking, I prefer to cook with something a little firmer.
Yeah, agreed. So now we're gonna go and move on to our wet. We're gonna stick our dry to the side. Forget about that. And we're gonna add in our sugar. And brown sugar is a really great example of an ingredient that you should be weighing. You'll see in a recipe that it says firmly packed brown sugar. One day you're gonna be rushing, you're not gonna pack it as much. The next day you're gonna really be taking your time packing it down. So every single time you bake, you're gonna get a different amount of sugar. When you weigh it, it's always gonna be the same. So 1 cup of brown sugar or 220 grams. So as you can see, I haven't had to dirty any extra measuring spoons, measuring cups, wash anything.
How many grams?
Oh, I went too far.
How many is it? 230?
220.
220.
220.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. All right. And you'll see a lot in recipes that any sugar is counted as a liquid. You want to add your sugars in with your liquids so that the liquids the granular of the sugar is going to start to break down and dissolve and incorporate, and it does add a lot of moisture to your baked goods, which is why it's considered a wet. Here I have 1 large egg and 1 large egg white. The reason you add an extra egg white to your baked goods or your cakes is to add leavening. So same as using a baking powder or baking soda, you're going to add in that extra egg white, and it's going to get really nice and frothy and add a lot of air into your baked good, and you're going to get a more tender cake. And what you want to do at this point is hand the bowl over to your very strong, manly husband to whisk. Well, because you want to mix this for about 2 minutes. You want it to get really light in color. You want to really go for it.
All right, I'm here.
So what he's doing is he's incorporating a lot of air, and it's going to get lighter in color and get kind of, it's going to start to smooth out. You're going to, see some of the sugar start to dissolve, and you'll see it lighten up really good and get lots of air in there. It's going to make a really big difference in your texture. And then once he's done with that, we are going to add in our melted butter, our sour cream.
Wow, it really is getting light and eerie.
Applesauce, our vanilla, and our lemon juice. So those are all of our wet ingredients.
You see that right there, Revit TV?
Look at that. See, this is why I bring him. Look how beautiful that is.
I've done.
Where would I be without you?
Oh, you'd be just fine.
All right, I'll put you on
your
okay? You're good. You're good. That's perfect.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
I'm actually impressed with myself.
See, you should be.
Jen does all the baking at the house, and that's one thing that I just haven't had to deal with because she's so good at it. I concede. Simple as that.
You could just enjoy eating it. All right, so for the butter, it's a 1/2 cup, so 1 stick of butter melted. I already have it pre-melted and cooled a little bit before I add it to this mixture.
Because it'll cook the eggs,
That's
right?
also 213 grams if you're weighing it out.
And the hot butter will cook the eggs.
The hot butter will cook the eggs.
No
so you don't
scrambled
want to
eggs.
do that. Exactly.
Do you want me to mix here?
You can.
Oh.
And you can mix that up, and then we're going to weigh in 1/3 of a cup sour cream, which is about 80 grams.
I'll tear this off.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was going to bring that up. So if you buy a scale, it might not say 0 on it. It might say tare. I think it's T-E-R-R-E.
T-A-R-E, I believe.
T-A-R-E. So it means to zero it out.
Correct.
So 80 grams of sour cream. A little more. I know. You get really good at figuring out.
I love the flavor of sour cream in my baked goods.
Yes. The added fat makes a huge difference. And so when you pull up a recipe and it says things specifically like a large egg or whole milk or a full fat sour cream, you really want to use those ingredients or else your baked goods are not going to come out the way you need them to. I'm just going to pour in 80 grams of applesauce. The recipe calls for unsweetened applesauce. I went rogue. Boom. And I'm using cinnamon applesauce because who doesn't want extra flavor in your cake? And
I prefer the extra sugar too.
And the extra sugar. That doesn't hurt anybody, right?
Listen, if you're gonna eat dessert, just do it right.
Exactly.
No offense.
Yes, I say it all the time.
You know, but it's only, moderation, everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. Then last 2 ingredients is a teaspoon of vanilla and a tablespoon of lemon juice. And I just used the store-bought lemon juice. You could definitely squeeze a fresh lemon if you really want to. And go ahead and mix that up really good. So now we've mixed up the dry really good, we've mixed up the wet really good, and all that's left is to bring it together. And when you do that, you're just gonna make sure you don't overmix. Now that you've mixed everything else really well, there's no need to overmix this. So whenever you're ready, you wanna dump that right in there. Thank you.
And the kind of the chemical or the reaction that happens when she's talking about overmixing is, as you know, flour is the gluten starts to work itself out, and it can turn into really elastic fibers.
Yes.
And then you end up having.
That's when you get really chewy cakes, really dense cakes. So you don't want to overdevelop all that gluten. So at this point, I just go ahead and fold it in, and you're gonna stir it gently, just until you have no dry spots. And the batter is gonna be lumpy. It's not gonna be smooth. It's gonna be a little rustic. I've already got my oven preheated to 350 degrees and ready to go. And my pan, so you can actually cook this in an 8-inch round pan, an 8-inch square pan, or it makes perfectly 1 dozen muffins. So if you want to just do nice individual servings. All right, and that flour I think is incorporated. We didn't beat the hell out of it. Now we're gonna divide this evenly into our muffin tins.
A spoon or anything? Or?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I probably should do a spoon.
She's a pro.
Yeah, but.
And you grease this?
I already greased this, so I actually use a cooking spray with flour added. I find that everything
gives like a crust, right?
Yes, it gives it a nice browning effect on the outside, and it just really makes a difference when you come to release the muffins. Nothing sticks when you use that spray, so that's really nice. And then once I get these divided,
you don't need to use muffin tin. I'm sorry, muffin.
You don't muffin liners. No, you could if you like the idea of how it looks, but it's really not necessary.
I prefer it like this because I like that crust it creates.
Exactly.
And you don't get that on the muffin liner because it peels off.
Agreed. And these are going to bake up really nice and full. All right, making a mess. All right. But if you're not making a mess while you're baking, then are you even baking? Yeah. Let's take a couple out here, and then we'll go ahead and take our leftover apples, and we're just going to sprinkle these right on top. That way you'll see what's in there.
So one of the reasons that she's very good at baking is precision is is key in baking,
Yes.
as mentioned, the measurements.
Yep.
But some of the things you can have some liberty on, or take some chances on, are like the apples. If you wanted them a little bit more of a rustic cut, if you wanted more of a shredded cut, you can do different things, and that's where like incorporating the kids into different baking.
Absolutely.
And you can say, hey, why don't you cut these apples, or
Yeah.
if they want to get involved, because that's what happens at home. A lot of kids and families want to do things together,
Yeah.
and I'm the kid, so I probably wouldn't be able to cut them right, and
That's
it'd be okay.
Yeah, it would be okay.
And Mom will do all the measurements.
Our kids do a lot of cooking and baking nowadays. They're older, but they're, they've learned by doing with us. So it's been nice. So these are gonna go in for about 25 to 30 minutes, just till they're lightly browned. Then if you were gonna do an 8-inch cake, you're gonna cook it closer to 40 to 45 minutes. And then that's that.
That was
so
simple.
super simple, really quick, nice and fall-like. Once they're done, we're going to add a glaze, just like a traditional apple fritter. You're gonna get those chunks of apples and a nice sugary glaze on the outside, but we'll come back to that. And in the meantime, Patrick is gonna take over.
All right, okay. Well, I'm gonna take a second to get assembled, and we will put our ingredients together, and we're gonna get started on the pasta, and then we're gonna bring it all together. So be back in just a second. Okay, and here we are. We're gonna be preparing the dinner portion of tonight's meal, and Jennifer obviously already has her apple cake in the oven. I'm going to be preparing a roasted butternut squash ravioli. We're going to do a little brown butter sage sauce with a couple little twists. And I just want to show you kind of how I do it at home and really show you how simple it can be. As you know, I worked in the restaurant business for most of my life, and learned a couple tricks of the trade. So brown butter gets very intimidating. You go to a restaurant and you're like, what does that mean, and how hard is it? So I want to help break down some of the difficulties and show you how real simple it can be. Yes. But something about this, I like to add a little bit of either bacon or pancetta. So I got some slab bacon at the store, and most of the ingredients I use are going to be stuff that you can buy at the local grocery store. So to make our ravioli and the sauce, we have really simple shallots, which are a garlicky type onion. As you can see here, we have fresh sage, we have unsalted butter, we have the raviolis, a little apple cider, and then some of the other accoutrements. And then for the topping and the salad that's going to go with it, we have some toasted pumpkin seeds, we have some Granny Smith apples, we have some gorgonzola cheese, and then we have some baby kale. And as you may notice here, I like to use other ingredients to highlight some local businesses or people that I think do a really cool job, because this is a good opportunity for them. So first off, Olivia's Organics, which is a fairly local company, but the best part about them is, one, their product is unbelievable, but two is they actually donate a lot of these clamshells of different lettuces, spinach, and kales to our local food pantry and to our Revere Veterans Pantry. So big shout out to Olivia's Organics for always giving back. We really appreciate it. And then I got this cool shirt here, which is Revere 02151, and that's a local company that's selling merchandise on the beach and going to be contributing and sponsoring some different Revere events, but really cool gear that highlights our city, and people are wearing it everywhere. Yeah. So
and she's online too.
Big shout out to Revere 02151 for doing super cool stuff and giving me some nice gear to wear. All right. But to start off, I have a hot pan and I have my boiling water going, because this dish is going to come together really quickly. I did not make the raviolis. I did buy those. You can buy store-bought raviolis at a lot of different places. These are some of my favorites. They're roasted butternut raviolis. Local pasta company, Lily's, out of Everett, but they've gone pretty international and national. A gentleman that I went to high school with took over this company from his mother, and Lily, and does an unbelievable pasta. So good stuff. You can get it at most grocery stores. And of course, there's other, Sabella's Ravioli and Revere does unbelievable raviolis. Really can't be beat. So you can't go wrong, or you can make them yourself. But to start off, I'm just going to get some of that thick cut bacon, as you can see here. And it doesn't take much, depends on what you want. It's a little soft, but we'll just do it like this then. Yeah. We're going to just cut little pieces here. So it's going to get right in the pan, and I'm going to slowly start to render that down. And you don't need much. It depends on how much you want. This is going to be a serving for about 2 to 3 people, or in my house, just me. And we're going to put that right here in the skillet, already preheated. And we're just going to let that bacon render down. That's going to also provide some of the fat into the dish. We'll add a little bit more. Okay. And we'll let that slowly render. That's going to take a second. You don't need to add any salt and pepper just yet. Just spread that out. And there you have. When the bacon starts to brown up, we're going to add some of the sage and then we're going to brown the butter. But I'll show you some of the tricks for the sage. So this is fresh sage. I do recommend using fresh. There is a real difference between fresh and dried sage, and I just don't find for something like this it's gonna be the same. But if that's all you can find, that'll be okay. There is some freeze-dried sage out there that's actually pretty good.
Yep.
And what I do is I take the leaves and I tight roll them here, and then I'll just do a little chiffonade. But you don't have to get that fancy because you do want to taste it, and it's okay to see it, and it's not it's not offensive or anything like that, so it's not going to really bother you. And sage is very unique, right?
Yes, very. It's very earthy.
It goes well in a lot of poultry offerings, and it's certainly unique in this brown butter sage sauce. So I'm just going to keep this aside right now, leave the stems. You don't want to use the stems, you want to pick those off. You can see the bacon's already curling up, but I want to get that crispy. I'll even remove it for a second. Over here I have salted water that's on a slow simmer. Before I add the pasta, and again, it's going to just take a few minutes, I'm going to get that to a rolling boil. So preparing my sage, then I have my shallot, which as I mentioned is a garlicky type of onion. So it's got that sweetness and it's got that little bite that you like. Really good, really goes good in a lot of different pan sauces. And this is what I love about this dish is everything really is done in one pan. So as you see, I did some cross cuts, and then I'm going to do a little small dice. Half a shallot should probably do. It won't hurt if you add more. It won't hurt if you add less. It's really what you like. And I just say that, as mentioning when Jen was doing her baked dish, it's very specific. You need to have specific measurements. Otherwise, it just doesn't cook right, and it comes out really, really weird. It goes over the pan. And so baking and cooking can be really different. Less precision.
I've had to learn to cook because I like the recipe. I like following the instructions. This, you have a little bit more free will, and I don't want to go rogue. I just want someone to tell me what to put in there.
Yep. So, still browning up nicely over there. This is going to be for the pan sauce. I also have a little apple cider, which we're finishing with the sauce, and then I'm going to use a little bit of lemon in the salad and in the dish, because I think that between the apple cider and the lemon, it's going to cut through some of the fattiness of the butter and the ravioli and the bacon. So the kale salad is going to be really simple. At the end, we're going to take this raw baby kale. So baby kale is much different than big kale or grown kale. Really, it's meant to be eaten raw. Yep. And it's just very much like a spinach or a nice kind of vibrant earthy green. And it's really simple. It comes in these packages, it comes pre-washed, so you don't really have to worry about that. And you can just use it just like that. And we'll mix that with our little our little bowl dressing, which is going to basically be a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of olive oil, and we're going to crumble some gorgonzola and pepitas. So as you can see, the bacon is almost as rendered as I want. So where I'm close on that, I'm going to bring this heat up on the pasta water. So that's going to get good. I'm going to take some of the baking fat. I'm actually going to peel it off because I want to show you the difference between the brown butter and what it's going to take to get nice and brown. And you want to get the nuttiness of that butter. You don't want to just melt it. The key to a brown butter is to make it brown, right? So we can take this, and we're just going to wipe a little bit of that grease out.
Yep.
Put it back on, and we're going to add this unsalted. And yep. Some people get confused as why unsalted. First, we're going to add some shallots. Now I added a little more shallots because I like them. We'll let those with some of the residual bacon fat is in there. And the unsalted butter is a little bit more pure. So what's the difference? Salted butter is typically, you get the milk, you turn it into butter. A lot of times it's not as separated. There's a lot more of the milk solids in there. And when the milk solids are going to carry some of that salt, and also some of the little bits and pieces, when you're cooking it down, that milk's going to slightly separate. So your butter, when you're making a brown butter, it can tend to separate, and sometimes it'll be unevenly cooked, and you'll get like little brown spots or dark spots, and you'll get this liquid version. There's also more water in salted butter. This here is basically a lot of those salt fats are removed, and the solids are removed, so it's just a little bit more pure. That's why a lot of times, believe it or not, salted butter is less expensive than unsalted butter, because you're getting actually a more concentrated butter. But if you're making bread, or I'm sorry, if you're just putting it on bread, or you're finishing something, salted butter is better because you get all that flavor. All right. So just a little toast on these shallots, and now we're going to add in the butter. We're just going to spread it out, and this is where you keep an eye on it, but just a close eye. The pasta is actually already going, and Jen's going to keep an eye on this and just move it around. Just move it around, let it foam up. All right, and we're going to add this pasta into the boiling water. This is about a pound of the squash raviolis, and we'll move it around.
And when you're browning the butter, I'm pretty sure I know what's happening. You're getting out a lot of that excess moisture, but you're browning the milk fats, and that's what creates that nutty flavor. Is that right? Yes,
that's exactly right. And that's what you want.
You're concentrating all of that.
So I like to add the sage about halfway through, and then I'm going to add the bacon crispy towards the end, because I want it to stay crispy and not soak up too much of the butter. But the reason I add the sage about halfway through is I don't want to burn the sage, but I want to keep that flavor in the sauce. So I like to get ahead. It all depends. Some people do it a little differently. This is just a little trick of my trade. So keeping an eye on the pasta. Pasta's going to probably take about 5-6 minutes, but we all know how to cook pasta in Revere, and you'll just wait for that ravioli to kind of bubble to the top. And you can see it's just still going, no big rush. I will add a little bit of black pepper now. I'm not adding the salt yet, because I want to refrain from creating any separation. It's going to separate, and that's okay. We are also going to add a little apple cider at the end to give it, again, a little bit more zip and just a little flavor. If you don't like using apple cider, you can use apple juice, you can use white wine, you can use even bourbon. Bourbon's really good in this. It gives us some good flavor. It depends on if you want to add alcohol or not. So gorgonzola, apples, kale, all that really go well together. And again, I know some people don't love blue cheese. I enjoy blue cheese, but I enjoy it when it's good. Sometimes it can be a little too pungent and it's not as tasty. So buy something decent. You don't need a lot of it, so it's not like you have to spend a lot of money, and it's worth it. Crumbled blue cheese I don't recommend, and the reason I don't is in order to keep it crumbly in a package, they have to add something to it, and usually that's like a cornstarch or some sort of something to keep it from clumping. So that's gonna offset the flavor, and I don't love it. These are Julian apples. I use Granny Smith. You can use any apple you like. I'd recommend something firm. If you're gonna cut this well in advance, I would say soak it in some lemon water. So we're about halfway there. If you look at this, this butter, this brown butter, or some people will even say like burnt noisette. All right, we're gonna add the sage, and you're gonna smell that sage, that toasty sage going wild. You see it?
Oh, it smells so good.
Yeah. And this is not meant to be a really saucy dish. This is meant to be something that's going to be really just kind of coat the pasta. And that's the key. When the pasta's finished cooking, we're going to add it to the pan, and the starch from the raviolis is going to grab onto some of that sauce. And while we're waiting, again, we're going to create the salad that's going to go on top. I love greens on top of my pasta. You can use arugula or other baby greens or even microgreens. I love it. Some people don't because the pasta can get, sorry, the greens can get a little wilty, but I think that they add such a component of texture and flavor, and you know, obviously if you're serving it, you want that restaurant, I always say that restaurant style, that wow effect. It's something that it adds a little bit of a you know, cool little sensation to your palate when you're eating the pasta. So you're really close here. You see it? You see it here? It's starting to get nice and golden brown. It's getting that amber.
Yeah, you can see the little specks in there.
So I'm going to now add in, because I think we're pretty much there. Really good job, Jennifer.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to add a little bit of that apple cider. This is going to almost kind of create a little bit of a reduction as well. Now that you're adding that cider, I'm not adding a lot. I only added about 2-3 tablespoons. Don't let it splash on you.
Yeah.
Is you're not going to really brown the butter much anymore. So once you're there, you're going to reduce off a little bit of that apple cider.
Yeah.
And then we can pretty much turn that off. Then I'm going to add in the bacon. And all we're going to do now is wait till the pasta's done, which you can see it's starting to roll up. And then we're going to bring it all together. So, kale in the pan. A little bit of olive oil. Doesn't need much. All right, you just want to coat that coat that kale. Like I said, a little bit of lemon juice, just a touch. A little salt and pepper. You don't need much salt and pepper because the gorgonzola is going to have a lot of salt. We can now salt the sauce. Oh, look at that. That looks good.
All right.
All right. We're going to add in the matchstick apples. Fancy terms. And then we're going to crumble in a little bit of that gorgonzola cheese, but we're going to also crumble the gorgonzola cheese over the top of this pasta. And then we're going to finish it with a little something sweet on top of those apples. So Jen's got the sauce here. You see the raviolis are starting to come to the top. I'm going to turn this back on just on a low heat because you want to bring that all together. You got your gorgonzola, apples, a little bit of lemon juice, and kale ready to rock and roll. This is on, and we're going to bring this pot closer. You see right here, the pasta has risen to the top. That means it cooked. And it's okay to get a little of that. You don't have to strain these so aggressively because you're going to bring the heat back on here, and that's going to bring the sauce all together. All right. How are we looking there? A little more.
One more. Okay.
Good. I think that's good.
All right.
Do you want me to go wild and do some tossing or no? Are we gonna do that?
I think you should.
Should we do that?
Go ahead, show off.
All right. We're gonna add a little bit more sage, just fresh sage at the end.
Absolutely.
No, you know what? We don't want to make a mess on Riviera TV. You see here? Oh, look at that. Oh man, we're
just
going
like
crazy.
A real cooking show.
But you see how it's coating everything? It's all coating very nicely. We'll have the last of these raviolis. We're not gonna waste. Yeah. Mike can host to eat your heart out. All right, look at that. It coated nice. It should stick to the pasta. You see the sauce on the bottom of this plate here? You can pour a little bit of that over.
Perfect.
All right. That heat's off.
Yep, I turned that one off.
And then you got your gorgonzola, kale, all ready to rock and roll. It's gonna be nice. And just a little bit, you know, because you're gonna make, if you're having people over, you're gonna have a few different plates, you know, as I mentioned. So you get your blue cheese here. We're gonna crumble a little bit more on top. A couple more matchsticks, you can get fancy with it. And then I'm gonna drizzle a little bit. This is not too much because this goes a long way. This is the bourbon maple syrup. And I just want to get that little hint. It's going to almost add like an essence to the plate. Some people like to use like balsamic vinegar reduction. Just a little bit of that maple bourbon. It's really cool stuff. I get this at Williams-Sonoma.
Yes.
It's really good. A little goes a long way. And there it is right there. We'll finish it with some pumpkin seeds. And if you don't like pumpkin seeds, you can always use walnuts or almonds or pistachios or something crunchy. But that's that, and Jen is gonna come out on the back end with our apple fritter.
Yes.
Wow, look at that. Timing was perfect. We should do this for a living. If this mayor thing doesn't work out, I think I have a career in.
Yeah.
I think we'll do just fine.
All right.
I actually enjoy very much, we enjoy representing our city, so
We do.
I hope you enjoy us, and I hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy this little anecdotal cooking stuff we do, because it's fun.
Yeah,
and-
we really enjoy it.
And one thing that we like to highlight is we are just real people, like everyone else in Revere. We go through the same things that you do. Our kids go to the same schools that your kids go to, and our field, and we use the same fields, and we love it. So it smells so good.
They smell great. They look great. They're nice and browned.
So what are you putting on top of it?
This right here is just powdered sugar and milk.
Can I pull one out? I need to pull one out.
Yes, you can.
I can't.
You got to be careful. It might be kind of
I
crumbly.
have,
So
I have Teflon hands.
If you don't live with Pat Keefe, what you're supposed to do is let them cool for about 10 minutes in the pan. You're then going to.
Look at this.
I mean, they're pretty perfect.
Look at that. Right out of the oven, piping hot.
Yep. Then you would let it cool for another 10 minutes.
We're gonna put 2.
Yes.
Piping hot.
And then once you let them cool a little bit, not all the way down, you can cover them with some glaze.
What's the glaze?
The glaze is just powdered sugar and whole milk, and that is it. About a cup of powdered sugar and a couple of tablespoons, about 2.5 tablespoons of milk. And I'm just gonna go ahead.
So confectioner sugar?
Yes, confectioner sugar, powdered sugar.
Give me the extra
And
glaze.
you're just gonna do a little extra glaze on there. And it's gonna soak in since the cake is hot. And it's gonna add that little bit of extra sweetness because the cake itself is not super sweet, which I kind of appreciate.
So those ones just came out of the oven.
Yes.
And these ones you made in advance.
I made these last night. Yep, we have some other ones.
And they hold up really well.
They do. They do hold up pretty
But
well.
I'm gonna eat the one out of the oven that looks delicious. And they're piping hot.
Yeah. I also made a full cake. This is what the round cake looks like. So you can make it in just a regular cake pan and it gets really nice and brown. That's a great dessert for Thanksgiving, or could make actually a really nice breakfast cake too. Something when you have a brunch. We love brunch.
Yeah, this looks so good.
So there we go.
And it is, again, as sad as it may be, we're saying goodbye to summer and welcome fall, but
Yep.
the best part about fall is you have that
Food.
kind of also the food, but you also have that semi-light sweatshirt weather, and you get to enjoy that. So make the best of it. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you take some notes. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yep. Have a great night.
Take care.